like Johnny on the factory floor. But when payday comes around, Johnny's check is more. When man equals woman and straight equals gay, black equals white and unbeliever equals saint, we will sing together, all humankind. Nothing between us but an equal sign. Nothing between us but an equal sign. Lily told her daddy, Lily told her daddy, I'm in love with Patrice, I'm in love with Patrice. He said, you're not my daughter, and put her on the streets. When man equals woman and straight equals gay, black equals white and non-believer equals saint, we will sing together, all humankind. Nothing between us but an equal sign. Nothing between us but an equal sign. Now Eddie is a good man. Eddie is a good man. Oh, but time and time again, the police pull him over for the color of his skin. When man equals woman and straight equals gay, black equals white and non-believer equals saint, we will sing together, all humankind. Nothing between us but an equal sign. We got nothing between us but an equal sign. Pick it up. Bossman told Elijah, oh, the bossman told Elijah, you're perfect for the job. I think you're perfect for the job, but you'll never work for me, cause you don't believe in God. When man equals woman and straight equals gay, black equals white and non-believer equals saint, we will sing together, all humankind. Nothing between us but an equal sign. We got nothing between us but an equal sign. We want nothing between us but an equal sign. We got nothing between us but an equal sign.
Hello and good morning, everybody, to the July rendition of Sunday Assembly Nashville. I am your lovely host for this morning, K Cho, and we will be going through this journey together. Sunday Assembly is a secular congregation. Can I get an amen? That celebrates life. We will not tell you how to live your life, but we will do our best to help you live your best life. Our motto is live better, help often, and one to more. I'm excited, guys. We got an awesome assembly plan for y'all today. Not only do we have the interactive quizzes that a lot of you have participated in already, you will also have a chance to vote for a local charity to receive a $200 donation from Sunday Assembly Nashville. More information on that coming up. And our speaker has kindly agreed to do a Q&A with us toward the end of our assembly after her presentation. So please make sure you submit all of your questions either into the Workday chat or the YouTube comments below so that our wonderful tech team can get the information together for us. All right. And as you guys saw on the picture slideshow, the struggle to end discrimination and injustice towards minority groups isn't something of the past. It's not over. And unfortunately, it's something that has seeped its way into our modern day life. And
that was me. Sorry. I'm trying to mute Tom. Sorry. Bring K back. Bring K back.
Yep.
I'll let you do it.
uh-oh.
Yeah,
Technical difficulties.
You're back.
Hang back
My
with
bad.
us.
Yeah, we're good, Kay.
All right, take two. All right, take two. So, as I was saying, all of us on this live stream are at different points of how much we have been able to participate or not participate in bringing about the changes that you guys saw on the slideshow. But Although we stand in different places as far as that's concerned, we stand on one place of common ground. And that common ground is on the shoulders of giants. And these shoulders of giants that I get to stand on are ones that allow me as an ethnic minority to get to live the wonderful life that I get to live, to enjoy the freedoms that I get to have, and get to have all of the wonderful privileges that I get to enjoy. But what's sad is that right now there are people in this country that do not have access to the life that I get to live and the freedoms that I get to enjoy. So, from that, what we want to bring to you today is a story that's not very commonly told. It's the story of allies. It is the story of the regular people that supported these historical figures, lifted them up, and helped them be the larger than life figures that we remember them for today. And we want to explore all of the different ways that we today can be the allies of the historical figures of tomorrow. And one of the best ways to be allies is to be educated in the lives of those who are in minority groups. And that is one of the reasons why we had the first question. And the answer to that is, as many of you chose, was Madam C.J. Walker. That's right. A lot of you have probably seen the show on Netflix. It's called Self-Made, inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker. She founded her business in 1905. Her first product was Madam Walker's Wonderful Hair Grower, a scalp conditioning and healing formula. So, if you guys haven't seen that show, be sure to check it out. It's a good one. All right. And I do believe that we are going to post the second question. All right. I really like this one. One of my favorite parts about being a host is I get to learn a lot about the topic that I'm going to be speaking on. And the question is, which battalion was the only all-black, all-female battalion overseas during World War II? So, we'll give you guys some time to answer that. And while you guys are answering that, we will be doing our reading. Tashi, Kelly, and Tom Kunesh will be doing our reading today. Take it away, guys.
A short note to my very critical and well-beloved friends and comrades.
By June Jordan of New York, 1936 to 2002.
First they said I was too light.
Then they said I was too dark.
Then they said I was too different.
Then they said I was too much the same.
Then they said I was too young.
Then they said I was too old.
Then they said I was too interracial.
Then they said I was too much a nationalist.
Then they said I was too silly.
Then they said I was too angry.
Then they said I was too idealistic.
Then they said I was too confusing altogether.
Make up your mind, they said.
Are you militant or sweet?
Are you vegetarian or meat?
Are you straight or are you gay?
And I said, hey, it's not about my mind.
Wow, that was powerful, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker for today. She received her bachelor's degree from Harvard, master's from California, Berkeley, and her PhD from George Washington University. She is a professor in women's and gender studies at MTSU and a returning speaker to the Sunday Assembly stage. Please help me welcome Marisa Richmond.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kay, for that wonderful introduction. Appreciate being back here with you. As was noted, I spoke to Sunday Assembly Nashville, I think about 3 years ago. And I enjoyed being with you and meeting many of you at that time. I wanted to chat a little bit briefly this morning with you about being allies, especially for marginalized communities. And I thought I would start by talking about my marginalized community. I am an out and proud Black transgender woman, and I've tried to be a major contributor to this city for a number of years. And this is my hometown. Was born and raised here, although I moved away, but I chose to come back, and I wanted to be engaged in helping make Nashville a better place. I like Nashville. I wouldn't have been willing to move back if I didn't believe that to begin with, but I wanted to make Nashville a little bit better. One of my missions was to make the world a better place, and we have to sometimes start in our own backyard. Certainly for those of us who are Black or brown and transgender, one of the big issues we're dealing with right now is violence. There's an epidemic of hate violence against people who look like me. We've seen a rash of murders. I think we're over 20 already this year. We had 6, I think, in 1 week alone towards the end of June. These hate crimes are very brutal and very violent. But even when we're not being killed, there's situations like the beating of Iana Dior at a Black Lives Matter rally in her hometown. Like others in her community, she was shocked and horrified by the murder of George. She went out to protest that murder with others in her community, but because she was transgender, she was targeted for violence and was brutally beaten by 30 other people, and they proudly put that on Facebook. And that's the sort of hatred and violence that we're dealing with. Of course, we do try to celebrate victories, and the recent ruling in the Supreme Court over workplace discrimination was a major step forward. But it's only one area in which the courts have ruled against discrimination. We're still fighting in a number of areas. The current administration has said that Title IX, which bans sex discrimination, does not cover us. And that sex discrimination language is similar to the Title VII language that the Supreme Court just ruled does cover us. The Open Housing Act of 1968 also has Sex Discrimination Act. And yet, right after the Supreme Court ruling, the Department of Housing and Urban Development has moved forward trying to authorize discrimination in federal housing loans, in federally funded shelters, and again saying that it is appropriate to discriminate against us. And so they don't think we should be working, they don't want us in schools, and then they don't even want to provide housing for us and do not want us in federally funded shelters. And we're fighting back against that because we do have an epidemic of homelessness, especially for Black and brown people, but in general for LGBTQ youth, and especially for transgender youth. We're trying to address that epidemic of homelessness. We've seen transgender people seek asylum, legal asylum in this country. And what happens is they're thrown into ICE custody, and 2 members of our community were beaten and then denied health care, and they died in custody of ICE. And we're shocked and horrified by the treatment of all immigrants, but in particular, we're saddened and disgusted by the death of 2 of our members of our community in ICE custody. They've sought to deny us health care, and it's needless to say, the reason we're all meeting by Zoom today, last time I met with you, we were at least over at Scarlett Bennett Center, because of this global pandemic. And right now, we don't know how much longer it's going to last. And the idea that you would deny health care to anybody in the midst of a pandemic is in my mind, criminal. And that's what we're fighting against. They want to tell doctors and hospitals, you can deny care. You don't even have to take these people in. And that's what our community is facing. Of course, the media is probably given more attention to the ban on transgender people serving in the military, people who want to serve this country. And again, it's all volunteer. And needless to say, there are a lot of people who have served before they were out of the closet and served honorably. A lot of people want to serve who have been there over the last few years. Many others who wish to serve. And this current administration has tried to deny people who, again, have honorable records and are devoted to service of this country, deny people that right. And so that's the sort of, those are just some of the issues, and there's so many more, especially in schools with regard to transgender youth. I spoke at last night's March for Equality and Justice across the street from the state capitol, and one of the educator I highlighted is the issue in schools, especially for young people, K through 12, who not only want to be free from bullying and harassment in their school, but our state legislature has sought to deny them access not only to health care, but even the right to play sports. Now, granted, because of the pandemic, nobody's playing sports right now, but the idea that somehow somebody running on a track team or playing volleyball is a threat to society is absolutely ridiculous. And that's what we're fighting against. So what are we looking for from allies? There's a number of ways you can speak up. In your own personal gatherings, in your own spaces with friends or families, speak up for equal rights. Speak up for inclusion. When you hear bigoted statements, denounce them. Put those bigots on the spot. Make them be on the defensive. Make it clear to everybody that you stand for justice and equity. In other organizations that you may belong to, one of the things I talked about yesterday was that we need to be at the table. It's important that we be included in all spaces. One thing for people to talk about transgender people as a they, it's another to have us in those spaces to talk about we and us. And when I talk to corporate organizations, businesses, I say, we're not just talking about access to bathrooms, we're talking about access to board. We want to be where the decisions are made because they affect us. And as I pointed out, people like Dr. Rachel Levine, who is the Commissioner of Health for the entire state of Pennsylvania and has gotten wide praise for her handling of the coronavirus epidemic. We have a lot of people who have talent and ability, who are willing to serve and have done a wonderful job when given that opportunity. And we just simply don't want to be denied that opportunity. My colleagues, Andrea Jenkins and Philippe Cunningham, two Black trans people on the City Council of Minneapolis, have been central to the response to the murder of George Floyd and have demonstrated real community leadership. And so when we have trans people at the table, people able to speak out, we can help make a difference and we can help educate people. I've tried to claim my seat at the table. Just 6 days ago, my colleagues on the Metro Human Relations Commission just elected me chair of the commission. I'm only the third transgender person in the entire country who's ever investigating discrimination and I've been trying to do that and speak out over the past 4 years. But now as chair, I have a unique opportunity to continue doing so. It gives me a slightly bigger platform. And there's so many more people, especially young people like the ones who organized last night's rally and the one a couple of weeks ago in front of the courthouse that was specifically about Black Trans Lives Matter. And so we've got a lot of young people who are impressing me and they just want an opportunity to shine. Allies, you can help in doing that. I don't know how much time I have left, but as Kay noted, I'm willing to take some questions. And I also provided a slide of listing some community resources, specific or led resources, where if you want to donate money, we could certainly use it. We're not good at fundraising. We don't have access to the big corporate donors like a lot of cisgender organizations have. And so we're asking for grassroots support. And so there's so many ways that you can be a strong ally. And then I really do appreciate this time to share with you for a few minutes and again to talk about the concerns that we in one particular marginalized community have. So again, I thank you for your time.
Marissa, thank you. Thank you for that awesome presentation. We appreciate it. I must say, we are definitely lucky to have you back in Tennessee, and Tennessee's for sure a better place with you in it. And we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us, and congratulations on your nomination to chair. That's pretty amazing. And I will have to say your tenacity is definitely contagious and refreshing. And now we're going to move on to answering the second question that we had. If you guys don't mind flipping to, there we go. Which battalion was the only all-black, all-female battalion overseas during World War II? The answer to that is the 6,888th Central Postal Directory Battalion. And it was also led by a black female officer overseas during World War II. They were known as the 688, and their motto was "No mail, no morale." And their first assignment was to sort mail for soldiers overseas in Europe, and it was backlogged for 2 years. And these women worked around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on rotating 8-hour shifts to get those letters from loved ones to Europe for the soldiers fighting for our country. And each shift processed around 65,000 pieces of mail every day. And they were able to complete their assignment in half the time that was allotted for them, and definitely set the bar for themselves and everyone else coming after them. So that's a pretty sweet piece of historical information right there. And now we're going to go ahead and go into our moment of mindfulness. During this time, it's just a great way for us to reflect on what we've heard today and just really think about how it affects our lives. Please join me in the minute of mindfulness. Our Try My Best segment is a segment where somebody from our group shares a story from their life where they've experienced the lows, the highs, the triumphs, or a little bit of all
Go
of
to
them.
K only.
But through it all, they did what they could to live their best life. Sharing his story today is our very own Stephen Barry.
Hey, y'all. So I wanted to share a story that is a personal experience that happened to me in the fall of 2016. I was leaving my mother's house. It was a Saturday night, and it was pretty late. It was after midnight. And I drove to Walmart to get a couple things, and there was a gas station right across from the Walmart. And I kind of rolled to a stop at the stop sign that was at the end of the Walmart parking lot. There's nobody in the parking lot, nobody outside. I didn't see anything. It was just completely dark. And I just keep going. I pull into the gas station. I get out of the car, and there's these flashing police lights suddenly, in my face. And there's a cop outside of the car, and he has his hand on his hip, and he's screaming at me to get back in the car. He's not saying it like that. He's saying it like, get back in the car. And I'm completely startled. I have no idea what's going on. My mind is just, I was frozen in time. And before I could say anything or do anything in those few seconds, he screams at me again to get back in the car. And this time he pulls his gun out and points it at me. And at this point, I've had a very sort of naive perspective about racism and about police brutality. And I felt that if you just do the right things and you don't make a fuss and you don't have an attitude and you're not speeding and you're not doing anything wrong, nothing's going to happen to you because, the police are just trying to do their job, right? And in that moment, everything just switched for me because I had no idea. I hadn't done anything, but I have this policeman screaming at me and pointing a gun at me, and I'm just trying to pump gas. Um, so I get back in the car, and he walks up to the car, and he's just antagonizing me. He's asking me, why is your speech slurred? What are you doing out here? And I start speaking really slowly and enunciating every single word like this. So there can be no misconstruing of the fact that I'm not trying to antagonize you or anything like that. I just want to go home, not doing anything. And he runs my plates, and I'm sitting there at the gas pump for about 25 minutes. And then he gives me a warning for running a stop sign. And I sit there for a while after he drives off, just kind of in shock because I'm thinking about, this is 2016. This is when Trayvon Martin and a lot of those things have already happened at that point. And I was thinking to myself, wow, that could have been me. It could have been me and no one would have known. There were no other witnesses. It would have been his word against a dead young Black man. And it probably wouldn't have even made the news. So every time that I see another story, another person gunned down, another person shot, another misunderstanding, that replays in my mind. And it's hard for me to understand how people don't understand how serious this is, as long as it's been happening. I mean, even when I was more naive, I still understood the seriousness of it, but I thought because I'm a nice guy and I'm not, I don't want any trouble, that nothing would happen to me. But there's just no telling. So I share that story to just let all of you know that this, it's trendy to sort of be woke right now, right? But this is a very real, serious symptom of oppression and systematic racism that could very well affect your friends, your family, people close to you. It's not something that's far out there, removed on the TV, in Chicago or in Atlanta or, just somewhere off far away from you. It's I don't have to deal with that. And that's sad that another person lost their life. This is a real thing. And we can go backwards. The progress that we have made, we can go further back. It's not a given that we're going to be in a utopia. So I would just encourage everyone to do your research and show love, show more love, and give more love. and be aware of what's going on around you, because this is real. Thank you.
Wow, that's a powerful story, Stephen. That's crazy to me because every time I've interacted with you, it's been so jovial. You're such a nice guy. The last thing I would ever think is that you were a threatening person. And to think that somebody in a position of authority, when you were just trying to live your life, felt that you were threatening enough to pull a firearm on you is just it's just so crazy. And the saddest part about that is I have a coworker that's been a friend of mine. He's African American. He's been a friend of mine for 4 years. We're super tight, you know, and he told me a story that was so similar. And he's the same way, the nicest guy you would ever meet, just super great. And he told me that whenever he saw the blue flashing lights, that he didn't pull over right away because it was dark. And he knows and has a routine to pull into a gas station where he sees people and where it's lit. And just the fact that in 2020 that is still something that has to run through my friend's mind and your mind is just appalling. But yeah, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And coming up next is Stephen Phelps, our one and only, and he's got a song for us. Take it away, Stephen.
Thank you, Kay, for that introduction. You know, it struck me as this assembly was coming up that it all boils down to me to equality or inequality. That's where that equal sign came from, and it applies today just as much. Any person who is in a group, that has smaller numbers than the majority in our democratic system can face the prospect of just not being heard. The numbers equate to votes. That affects legislation. That legislation can affect our daily lives. So who you want to love, who you want to be, what job you can apply for, can all be discriminated against just on the basis of who you are as a person, and that's wrong. So we all need allies. Any disenfranchised group needs allies. That's what this song is all about. Hope you like it. One, two, three, four. No matter how brave, no matter how strong, no matter how hard you try to make it on your own, comes a time you need somebody. I won't pretend to know your pain, but I'm no stranger to injustice, just the same to my mind. We share a journey. This battle is bigger than you or me. The power of us is the power we need. And I will fight for you, and you fight for me. When we stand in the right, we will shine in the light of liberty, and we'll claim the higher ground. Speak out till the truth resounds. We'll never surrender, steadfast to the end. We'll be side by side. We are allies. Take a look around, you're gonna see there's too much prejudice and inequality. This is the time compassion. Who you want to love, who you want to be, is no concern of politicians or a priest. My mind, I hear a call to action. Our voices will be heard. We'll win this war of words, and I will fight for you, and you fight for me. When we stand in the right, we will shine in the light of liberty, and we'll claim the higher ground. Speak out till the truth resounds. We'll never surrender, steadfast to the end. We'll be side by side. We are allies. Anyone trapped in the silence of being outnumbered, come join the beautiful chorus of different drummers. I will fight for you, and you fight for me. When we stand in the right, we will shine in the light of liberty, and we'll claim the higher ground. Speak out till the truth resounds. We'll never surrender, steadfast to the end. We'll be side by side.
Another original by Stephen Phelps. Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it. We will now move on to the Q&A portion of our segment. If you guys could go ahead and pull up Marisa and I so that we could go ahead with the questions.
Oh, I'm going to pin her.
Yeah, thanks.
And we'll go ahead and get the questions ready. Hey, Marisa. You ready for the first question?
Hey, man.
All right. I can hear you now. Are we good to go?
Okay, good.
All right. Awesome. So the first question is, if someone doesn't choose to participate in a march or demonstration, what are some ways that they could help or participate or be an ally?
Well, as I was saying, just in your social circle, just being willing to speak up. Sometimes people volunteer with nonprofits, ensure that that those organizations are open and accessible. We've had lots of issues, for instance, with homeless shelters, and in particular with kind of sliding back into a depression. A lot of people are losing their jobs and losing their homes. Teachers making sure that you don't tolerate bullying and harassment of anybody in your classrooms. And again, if you can't afford to make donations, sometimes again people may not be able to get out for one reason or another, and especially retired people. But donate. Donate to transgender groups, to groups that are providing direct services and advocating for those who are marginalized.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. So you're just saying really it's wherever you are, I guess be open to the opportunity to say something and just be aware of the prejudice that's going around you that may go unnoticed because unfortunately it's been so almost, I don't know if this is the right word, but normalized, I guess.
Yeah, some people, have said things that they may not even realize are prejudice. I mean, we're
Right.
seeing obviously with regard to a certain football team in our nation's capital. I've been conscious, especially because I used to live in D.C. I was conscious
Mm,
of the racist nature of that name, but the owner and some people have been in denial about that, and we
right.
have to keep speaking up. And that's certainly something that we've seen over the past month or so, especially since the murder of George Floyd. I think people are finally starting to become much more aware of the insidious nature of bigotry, and people are more willing to speak up. And some are doing it in the streets, but others are doing it in other ways.
Hmm. Okay, gotcha. Well, speaking of everything that's happened up to this point, as you said, and I believe Stephen Barry mentioned it as well, it is definitely a time where, as they would call it, being woke is very trendy right now. And I'm sure that a lot of people that are watching right now can relate that, as I felt, they want to voice support and allyship to just the friends around them or their coworkers. But I personally have found it a bit awkward and don't know really how to approach it because I don't want to seem like I'm just being trendy, but then I don't want to seem like I'm not saying anything either. Any advice on how to approach that situation?
Well, I suppose for each individual, there is a comfort level. And so you kind of have to find that. But keep in mind that the people, when they do speak and express their bigotry, they're at a comfort level that,
Mm,
and we need to kind of push them back, sort of like turning on the lights and the roaches scatter. And so we
mm,
have to shine the light of reason and intellect, and force them out, and little by little, bit by bit. Some of us are more used to doing, but as each and every one of us does it, we make it clear that those attitudes are no longer acceptable.
hmm. Okay, I gotcha. All right. And I believe this will be the final question. I believe I asked you this when we spoke before. What would you say from your position that what do you think are some important questions that organizations like ours should be asking ourselves about how we're interacting with the world at large or different minority groups that are here locally?
Well, with any organization, just start by making sure that your doors are open, talking to people from these marginalized communities, uh, saying, are we doing enough? Are we making any mistakes? Please
Mm,
share with us. And regardless of whether it's Sunday Assembly or any other organization, I think it's important to listen to people within your organization, and again, making sure that your leadership, whatever the boards are, that your executive committees, different organizations use different terms, to make sure that it is truly inclusive of the diversity of your organization. If everybody looks the same, then it's not diverse, and you're not including those voices.
right, right. Okay. I like that. I definitely see a common thread in everything that you've saying, and it's super simple, and it's just funny because sometimes we look for the silver bullet or fancy answers, but it's just like, hey, just treat people like people and listen to them, and make sure that when they're heard, their requests or the things that they're saying are respected and acted upon, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Awesome. Appreciate it. I think that was the last question, so thanks for taking the time to do that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I think now we will go ahead and put on the screen the different. There we go. Okay. Which, so seems like, oh wow, it's 50-50. So I would just like to remind everybody to go to menti.com, and whenever you go to the website, it will ask you to put in a code, and the code will be 644361. And I believe that we will be keeping this up for a little while longer while the assembly is going on, and we will not be able to tell you the final result today during assembly, but as we get more votes in, we will be posting on Facebook and on Workplace what the results will be. So thanks for voting, guys. I appreciate it. And I believe we're going to go to our announcements next. Possibly. All right, here we go. Announcements and acknowledgements. So, as you guys have heard before many, many times, where two or more gather, there are expenses. And as it shows here, it shows a website where you can go on and become a sustaining member. And when I say that that is one of the most helpful things that you could do to our organization, that is the truth. Because, as you guys know, we count on that money. We have to pay for lots of things. We, of course, are not having to pay rent right now, but we have to pay rent every month, and there are all kinds of different expenses that come in to make sure that we have a great experience every time we meet. So if you guys could do that, we would definitely appreciate it. But, no pressure. If you can give a one-time donation, that's great too. Or if you can't do that, volunteering your time, any of those things will be very much appreciated. And speaking of volunteers, there you go. There's a lot of names on there, guys, and a lot of different things that we could do. Our organization is very, very heavily dependent on volunteers. To make these Sunday assemblies happen, there's a huge group of people that put in way more time than it takes to experience a Sunday assembly to help make it happen. So if you see any of these people, reach out to them. If you're a warm body willing to help, we can put you somewhere. And I'll go ahead and make this pledge and promise right now. If you ever see me at a Sunday assembly, no matter what I'm doing, if you want to volunteer, stop me. I will definitely take the time to listen to what you would like to do and try to put you in the right place. And of course, it's 2020. Can't forget social media. Please join us on all of these different pages. The more that you interact with us on here, the more that you comment, it brings things up on people's pages more. And the more we have a voice on the internet, the more people can hear about our awesome organization and just join the community that we have. This question is definitely something that hits home for me. When was the legal ban on interracial marriage overturned? Ooh, look at that. Everybody jumping in. I'll give you guys a little bit more time to get the answer to this question. All right, very nicely done. It seems like the answers have slowed down a bit. And as you guys are overwhelmingly answering, the answer is 1967. Richard Loving, a white man, and Mildred Jeter, an African American woman, were married in the District of Columbia. And when they returned to Virginia, their home state, the newlywed couple, believe it or not, was arrested for violating the state's, I am so happy that I had to look up this word, anti-miscegenation law, and faced a year in prison. Unbelievable. And this case went to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found in favor of, ironically, the name Lovings in the famous trial Loving versus Virginia. And to put this into context, the Apollo 11 missions that went to the moon, it was only 2 years after that. You know, it's just crazy to think that we as the human race can do something as spectacular and amazing as putting somebody on the moon, but at the same time wanted to throw just a loving couple in jail for a year because they were not the same race. I don't know. It just baffles me. It just baffles me. I don't understand. And hearing the stories today shared by Stephen and Marisa, and the reading that the kuneshes did, is just a reminder of the issues that are real and the issues that we are facing today. And for my closing thoughts, I would just like to say that, as I mentioned in the intro, you don't have to be somebody spectacular. You don't have to be a historical figure, a Martin Luther King, to make huge changes, because all of those people that surrounded them and supported them are just as important as the figureheads themselves. So I encourage you, wherever you are, however you can be an ally and support people in marginalized groups, I encourage you to do so. And with that, that's our assembly. And we're going to have Stephen Phelps close us out with his song, I Believe in Good. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Kay. Jordan's going to help me out on this one.
I believe in good. Oh, I believe in good. I believe in being good and doing good just for goodness sake. Good makes the whole world better. Good is great, and I believe in harmony. Respect for all humanity. I believe that we will find the only truth we need, living this one life by this one creed. I believe in good. I believe in good. Sing it with me now. I believe in good. Oh, I believe in good. I believe in being good and doing good just for goodness sake. Good makes the whole world better. Good is great, and I believe in harmony. Respect for all humanity. I believe that we will find the only truth we need, living this one life by this one creed. I believe in good. I believe in